Happy Wednesday. You're currently listening to the Graduated and Grown podcast, a podcast that's focused on helping you and me navigate these streets of adulting. It's no longer the world of adulting, these streets. We are out here on the streets of adulting trying to figure out what is life post grad? What am I supposed to do the day I walk across that stage with my diploma cover? Like, what do I expect for life after college? And so far for this podcast, we are 20 episodes in. This is episode 20, and we're figuring out adulting step by step. We've covered taxes, we've covered long-term relationships, we've covered dating, we've covered so many different things, social media, a lot. But today's episode, we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about blowing up on TikTok, about the struggles of being an adult. And this is going to come from someone that has actually been out of college for a little bit longer than me. She's about 3 years older than me. So she'll have a slightly different perspective. But when I say she's slightly older than me, like we are, like I feel like we're the same. Like it doesn't feel like I'm talking to someone 10 years older than me. So today's guest is none other than Jordyn Woodruff, who's also known as Jordyn Would Know on some social media platforms. Jordyn is 26 years old and she was born and raised in Minnesota, but I don't want to spill the tea because in the episode you'll hear where she's moving to, but she is moving to a brand new place, a lot of people's dream places, and it was actually her dream place. I'm so happy for her. But in this episode, we're gonna talk a little bit about chasing your dreams. Jordyn is literally in the process of chasing her dreams. She left somewhere that was comfortable for her, somewhere where she spent a lot of time at to go and pursue something new, something maybe a little bit more exciting. So you'll like that. Now, Jordyn says she is a self-proclaimed pop culture and TikTok tea like expert and enthusiast, but no, she's not self-proclaimed. She is an expert and enthusiast in all things TikTok tea and pop culture. I actually found her because she used to do like these comparisons of TikTokers, like their old videos versus now, or like what made them famous, and followed her, and I've loved her content since then. She's definitely done a lot of tea coverage. She does a couple vlogs, and she's just really awesome. And what I love so much about this interview, not only did she talk about chasing her dreams, but I felt like even though Jordyn and I have never met, I feel like we instantly became internet friends. Like we actually like DM each other about things now. Like we'll have laughs about things in the DMs. And it's funny, I was actually in New York about 3 weeks ago and I was like, Jordyn, have you moved yet? If so, like let's go grab lunch, something. And unfortunately she didn't move yet. But she should be moving there very soon. So next time I go to New York, you guys will definitely see me with Jordyn. She's so sweet. So cool. She's definitely my newest internet friend.
This is current Ariane editing. I just realized that I ruined the surprise. Jordyn is moving to New York. It was supposed to be in the freaking interview, but I just had to spill the tea. I mean, you guys, if you follow Jordyn, you already know, but yes, she's moving to the Big Apple. I can't keep my mouth shut, so let's just continue with this episode. Oh my goodness.
But anyway, in Jordyn's free time, she loves just catching up on all things tea and entertainment news related. She also loves a nice glass of wine and trying new restaurants. I think that's super cool. And yeah, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with Jordyn where we talk about the struggles of adulting, chasing your dreams, moving to a new city, having a large platform on social media, and also just why Jordyn isn't a big fan of being in her 20s. Enjoy. Hey, all the graduated and grown listeners. Today we have a special guest, someone that's new to the graduated and grown franchise. I don't know if I can say that, but I want you guys to give a virtual audio podcast, e-podcast, I don't know. Give a round of applause for Miss Jordyn Woodruff. Hi, Jordyn.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. Let me tell you, so when I DM'd you, I don't remember when that was, but I was like, she's not going to see the message. I know it's sitting in her message request. And I was like, I don't want to be creepy and then DM her TikTok account too, because I don't want to seem, like desperate or anything. But when you finally responded, I was so happy.
No, I was so happy you reached out. So when you reached out, that was kind of when I was moving everything over to Instagram, and I didn't really understand how requests worked, just because I didn't really understand that people had a request to DM you. So I was looking, I'm like, why do I have a certain number and then a request. And I looked and was like, oh my gosh, people are, I'm just ignoring them. So I'm so glad you reached out, and you could totally DM me on it, TikTok too, and responded because I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, awesome. Well, let's do a couple icebreakers so that I can get to know you a little better and that's also a little fun. So, we're both working women. So, when you're not working, when you're not updating us on the TikTok tea, what do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, so that's a good question because if you would asked me 6 months ago, I would have said TikTok because it was purely a
Mhm.
hobby then. I mean, it still is a hobby now, but I think of it as a little bit more of a side career or side hustle. So
Mhm.
it's literally stalking everyone for the tea and just like reading pop culture
Yes.
7. I would say, like, I love being active, so I love working out, going outside. I love food, so I love trying new restaurants. I love wine and coffee, so
Yes.
going to Target and just browsing, do that all the time to relieve stress. So, yeah, I would say all of those,
Yes.
but honestly, I'm like always just like reading up on pop culture, the tea. I find that so fascinating, and I just do that for fun like every single day.
Yes. And that's part of the reason why I really wanted to have you on the podcast because I think there's so many people in our age group that just simply aren't interested in pop culture. Like, yeah, maybe they'll read a tweet or an article, but they're not like fully invested. I'm like, this girl is fully invested in pop culture and I love it. So I agree. And it's funny that you mentioned Target. Like when the pandemic was really at its strongest, I guess, I would love just going to a Target on a random day and just relieving my stress, picking up random items. One day I bought like mini sunflower planters. They didn't even grow. But yeah, Target is the best.
Right? I know I used to go, so I can walk to Target from where I live, and I go and
Nice.
be like, okay, I'm not gonna bring my wallet. And then I got Apple Pay on my phone, and now it's a really dark hole. Every time I go to Target, I leave spending like $50. It's bad.
I
It's so
believe it. I
addicting.
believe it. And I noticed on, I think it's your Instagram, do you like go for really early morning jogs or something? Because I swear one time you posted something that was like 4 something, and I'm like, 4 a.m.?
So I'm a little crazy in the mornings, and I'm a more big morning person. I get up at
Wow.
between 4 and 4:30 every morning. Um, I know that's people's reaction. So I mean, long story short, my old job required me to get up early, and then I got into a habit of it, so I just couldn't really get out of it. And then I started to fall in love with the idea of like being the only person awake and going to the gym when it's dead. And just
Yeah.
I also am I'm very bad at putting my phone aside and not answering emails or texts. So in the morning, I'm like, no one's gonna respond or text or email me at 4:30 in the morning. So it's kind
Yeah.
of that 2 hour window where I just get like no one bothers me. And it's like an addiction. I just love that time. So yeah, I get up pretty early to go work out.
Wow. That is honestly hashtag goals. Like I agree with you. I think being up in the morning when no one else is up is honestly so amazing. I did it a little bit my senior year of college. Don't do that now much. But wow, 4 to 4:30. That's beautiful. That is goals. One day I will get like you. So what time do you go to bed?
See, that's the problem. I used to be really good and I would go to bed at like 8:30, but now with like TikTok,
Mm,
I'm so addicted to stories coming through that if I see something pop up, I will literally
yeah.
wake up and record a video. So sometimes I go to bed at like 10 and or 11.
Wow.
It's getting a little unhealthy. I need to get more sleep, but I have like no self-control with my phone. That's the problem.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, to be fair, it took me many, many years to wake up this early. Like, started at like 7, 6:36. So it took me a long time.
Wow. But I think that's the thing with like pop culture. You have like when a story breaks, you have to report the story or else somebody else is going to get, your shine. So I get that 100%. But wow. Very impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Next icebreaker. This is a fun one. Okay, so let's say you and we both get a call and they say, hey, Ariane, Jordyn, we want you to be in the next Triller Compound content house. And so we get to pick 3 people. So you pick 3, I pick 3 to be in the house. So what 3 people are you bringing?
Oh
And it
god,
can be co-ed too, not just girls.
that's a hard question. So, because like you have to be, I feel like strategic about it, but also I have like my favorite people I want to hang out with. But it's like
Hmm.
my goals to have friends, to make money. Because like, I mean, at the end of the day, oh gosh, okay, I think I figured it out. So, and they also have to get along. Like, not a lot of these people get along. So, I feel like I would do Josh Richards because he is like a little mini mastermind. He's so smart and good at making money. Um, Bryce Hall because he's so entertaining. And then I would love to throw in like Dixie or Addison, but I wouldn't really be able to because like Addison and Bryce and Dixie, I don't think is a huge fan of Bryce, but Dixie's like my favorite female TikToker. So you know what? I'm just gonna say Dixie, Josh, Bryce, and Dixie.
Very interesting. Josh, okay, very interesting. I don't know how I feel about Josh just yet. But maybe it's because he's so focused on like getting to the bag and like he's very business minded. I'm like I need to have fun. I feel like Josh isn't into the fun anymore, but good for him. Love Bryce, totally cool with that. Love Dixie, but good point. I think for me, I was going to say Dixie, but definitely Addison. I think Addison's probably one of my favorites. I think I'm very intrigued by her. I think Addison and Charlie are very intriguing. I need to know more. So, Addison, I think I would do Azra from the Meon twins. I think she's so cool. And who's somebody that can give us a lot of clout? I think Vinny Hacker would be interesting to have in the house. I think he's really, really cool. I think he's kind of more on the laid back side, but I think he would be an interesting person to have in the house.
Okay, now that we're talking about this, you're making me want to change. Like right off the bat, Azra or Aisha for sure, and then Taylor Holder, and then Bryce. Bryce Taylor, and then one of the Meon twins. That's my new pick. Love Vinny,
Okay.
but he's got out recently, so yeah.
So, what's your favorite TikTok trend? It could be a current trend or it could be an old trend. Like, what's something that you absolutely loved?
Oh gosh. There's so many really good trends, but I'm trying to think of the ones that like really. Oh, right now my favorite TikTok trend, like no matter who is creating the video, like I have to watch it, the Adult Swim trends.
Yes.
I love that song, and I think it's a song that brings me in. But I would say that. But my favorite trend back in the day is I loved when people posed and then an old picture would pop up, like I'm just a kid. Do you remember that trend?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one. That one was fun.
Nice. Okay, great, great choice. Well, thank you for answering those fun questions. And we're going to get ready to go into the meat of the podcast. But before we do that, can you tell the listeners just like who is Jordyn? Who are you and what are you doing right now?
Yeah. So who am I? That's also a really good question. I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out, and that's why I was so intrigued when you reached out and you brought me the set of questions because I feel like, and I've talked about this a little bit on my TikTok, but 20s are such a hard age of figuring out what you want to do, who you are, and I feel like I've been asked that a few times, like, who is Jordyn? I'm like, honestly, I don't really even know. Right now, I live in the
Mhm.
I work a traditional corporate job. But I shared with you before the podcast started that I recently accepted a new, still corporate job, but in New York City. So I'm going to be moving to New York in end of August or early September, which I'm so excited about. Um, but yeah, I don't,
Yes.
honestly, I'm 26 and I still don't know who I am. I'm still literally figuring out every single day.
I love that. I totally get that. I totally agree. Our 20s are a time to figure out who you are and who you want to be. Like no pressure. You don't have to figure out who you want to be, but I think this is a great time to, make those baby steps to, figure out who's Jordyn going to be when she's 30. What is she going to be remembered by? What are her values? What does she stand for? Different stuff like that.
Yeah, and the person I was a year ago or even 6 months ago is so different than the person I am today. So I feel like I'm constantly changing. Where
Yeah.
I assume that will stop eventually. But yeah, I mean, like if you asked me a year ago, I would have completely different answers than I do today.
Yeah, life is crazy. So I don't think I told you about how I found you. So the listeners might enjoy this. So I was on TikTok, don't even remember when it was. Maybe it was last year, maybe it was like January. I know it was sometime between the end of last year and early this year. But I was scrolling on my For You page and this girl pops up on my screen and it's like famous TikTokers then and now. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I don't remember who it was. It might have been Addison because, love her, but you like showed like her first TikTok and then like her most recent TikTok at the time. I'm like, oh, this is so cool because I think at that time I was really curious, like, how did these people like evolve to the people that they are today? Like, Addison has had a huge shift. Like, she's definitely matured a lot. She gives more LA vibes than Louisiana vibes, different things like that. So I saw that, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. So then I started watching more and more. I was like, okay, this girl's cool. Followed. And then you started giving more tea, more tea. And then most recently, you kind of started going into, instead of just TikTok tea, also pop culture tea. So, really excited to have you on the podcast. And I'm excited to start off the conversation talking about TikTok because I think, well, one, that's how we met. So, what inspired you to start your account? And your name is clever, Jordyn would know. What inspired you to start that? And then tell me a little bit about the growth of your account.
Yeah, so honestly, since I was very young, I've been truly addicted to everything pop culture, famous people. I've been fascinated by them.
Yeah.
I would like binge watch E News, Entertainment Tonight. E News was the only TV station I watched. I watched the Kardashians, I watched all the reality TV. And my entire life, I wanted to be a host of a TV show, so similar to like E News anchor. And the older I got,
Yeah.
the more I started to figure out like, I don't know if I can really talk in front of a camera. I'm not great reading off of a teleprompter. And I had some experience in college because I did the news for them for a short time and it was a struggle of mine. And so I was like, yeah, I was like, maybe that's not really for me. And then it was still always like a passion in the back of my head. But then, you get involved in like, you graduate college and everyone's pressuring you to get a good job and what pays the best. So you just like settle and you take it. So during COVID, I finally was just like, I'm so bored. I'm so lonely. No one's going to know. So I'm just going to start posting on TikTok. And I posted, so my year anniversary on TikTok was yesterday, I believe. And yeah, so I posted a year ago, and honestly, I didn't tell anyone when I started posting. I think I was a month in, and my roommate was like, "What is this? What are you doing on TikTok?" She's like, "That's so cool," but because I just like I didn't know if people were gonna like judge me, or I'm in Minnesota. No hate to Minnesota, but it's not the most like content creation friendly place to be. It's not like LA where everyone's doing it, or New York. Um, so yeah, so I started doing that, and then it's funny because the video that you saw me, or the video that you saw on your For You page, is actually the video that kind of started growing my account. So I grew very slowly on TikTok. I mean, I'm at 200, a little over 200,000. I've been doing this for a year, but it took me 6 months to get to 10K, which I feel like a lot of people, they get to 10K pretty quickly. So I was like truly grinding for the first 6 months. And then I finally one day was like, I'm going to make a series. And I did what TikTok made this TikToker viral. And it was the Addison Rae one. And that was my first like truly viral video. And it bumped me up to a little over 10K. And that's when I knew I was like, this is it. This is like what I'm going to be doing for the the foreseeable future.
Wow, that's so awesome. I love a good series on TikTok, so shout out to you. So I know with TikTok, it's an amazing app, but it can be pretty toxic in the comment section. I have seen comments like I've never seen before. Like I scroll through like Charlie and Addison's comments. 'Cause I'm like, what do people say? People are so rude. And so you have a large audience. You're getting like sometimes you get millions of views, you're getting hundreds of thousands of views on the regular. So how do you deal with rude comments and TikTok hate? Does it get to you?
Yeah, and that's the thing that really sucks is so I started getting hate probably when I reached 10,000 followers. And before that, like the people, I had a really great community. The people who followed me were so nice. So I hadn't experienced it for 6 months. And then all of a sudden I started getting a lot of hate. And in the beginning, I just kind of like brushed it off. But when you hear the same thing over and over again, you start to believe it. So people would say stuff like, "You're ugly, you have a big forehead." Like that I like remember that comment to this day, and I'm still like my forehead. And they're just like, what you do is so messed up, like it's like creepy that you're so involved in the tea. And so for a very long time I removed myself from the comments and I refused to look at them, which sucked because I wanted to interact with my audience and the people who followed me. And just recently I started getting back into commenting on like commenting back on my videos, but it's still like very damaging because I'll see those same comments and I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Like if one more person says I look like, or calls me ugly or calls me like creepy or this or that, I'm just gonna lose my mind.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I think that's so frustrating. And I hate that creators have to experience that. I have seen a comment underneath your video and they're like, aren't you like 33? No, she's not 33. Thank you. Like, leave her alone. If this is what she wants to post about and she has over 200,000 people interested in what she's saying, you can be quiet. Because the person that's commenting is probably, in all honesty, older than us or like half of our age.
Right. And then that's the thing, it's like I don't really have any advice because it's still so new to be
Hmm.
like bullied online every single day. And I would hate to like tell people just don't go into your comments, but that's kind of the only thing I figured out. Obviously, like I have an amazing community behind me that really backs me up, and I try to focus on that. But I mean, it's hard seeing that every single day. So I just, I really try not to let it get to me and just like focus on the positive. But it's been really difficult with the hate for sure.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't know if it's still there in your bio, but I like that your TikTok bio was like a positive twist on the T. And that's super refreshing. So keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's still there. I feel like that will forever be like my tagline. And granted, with the tea, you can't always be positive, but my main focus is I just try not to like fully trash people when I give the tea. I just try to say I'm biased.
Hmm.
I try to post positive things too. I just never want people to think of me as just like a trash tea channel. Like I want to be more than just considered like a tea channel. So that will forever be in there.
Love that. Okay. So I love some good tea. So before we move away from the tea, what is your favorite TikTok tea story of all time? When I think of TikTok tea, it either has to be, was it July 6th, 2020? That was I stayed up late for that. I was up past midnight for that tea. Or the Bryce and the Addison, but that was frustrating though. So I don't. I'll just say the July 6th tea. That was my favorite. What was yours?
I would you read my mind. I would say July 6th, I think it was July 6th was the most monumental moment in
Mhm.
TikTok history. I feel like that like started the trend of allowing there to be tea pages in the TikTok world. So that
Yes.
I was literally sitting right here on the floor, like glued to my phone, watching, updating, like looking at people's tweets, updating. I was up very late that night. It was crazy. So that
Hmm.
also would say the Griffin and Dixie story has been like pretty monumental in my head because that was right, right.
Yes.
People forget, but that also changed the wave. I feel like of tea because it was still. I mean, that was I think a month later, so people were still getting used to it. So I would, and I hate to say this, but like the Jaden and Nessa and Josh and Matt situation was insane. Like insane. I'm not like it wasn't my favorite because I actually do feel bad for what they all went through, but it was so mind blowing where I was even like, oh my God, I'm so invested. So
Yeah.
that was also like kind of one of my favorite situations.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about the Dixie and Griffin. Yeah, that was probably second place. Oh, that was so good. Okay. So, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it seems like you're bringing a little bit more pop culture into your content on your page. And so, do you have dreams of one day like actually working in pop culture, or do you think it's just a hobby?
Yeah, so I would say my end goal. So, like I said in the beginning, I binge watched E News and I thought I wanted to be like a host or a news anchor. And I figured out like talking in front of people, not really a fan. But I've fallen in love with podcasts and I would love my like right now, my like I would love to have a pop culture or a like tea related podcast similar to like Chicks in the Office, like that Barstool podcast. So I want to just move my platform and do like a drama pop or pop culture tea related podcast for like a digital media company like a Barstool or a Betches. And that's like right now my dream for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. I could totally see you do that. I could totally see you doing that. Okay. And I think your your social media, I think that's going to get you so far in all honesty, because nowadays you don't necessarily have to have the formal training to have a podcast, to be on TV, stuff like that. So I think your pages are going to continue to grow. And then when you put in that application at Barstool to say, hey, Caller Daddy is gone, let me be your new podcast, they'll look at your page, see you have a huge audience. I think that's really going to work out for you. And I think it'll probably be soon too. So I'm optimistic. Yay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's something about just chatting with one other person in a room like this where I can do it just like my phone. Like TikTok, it's just you and the phone. But yeah, when you put me in front of a live audience or a teleprompter, I'm like, I can't communicate. I'm like so scared. So I like the one on one conversations.
Yeah, I get that. And you started a new oh my goodness, I just said the word. You started a new series on your page called Terrible 20s, correct? Yeah. So talk to me about
Correct.
what inspired that and what hashtag Terrible 20s means.
Yeah, so I feel like um sometimes I feel like I'm the only person in my 20s who dislikes being in their 20s. And it's just been such a struggle for me these past few years because I feel like for so long I've been trying to please other people by getting like the job that pays well or the good corporate job or staying in a like more boring part of Minnesota to save money. And I just feel like I've been living my life for so many different people for a very long time. And honestly, that's kind of been a blessing of TikTok because I feel like I'm finally able to express myself more, figure out the things I want in life. And I was just sitting there one day and I'm like, there's so many people that have to feel the same way as I feel. And if I can share tips that I'm doing when I'm 26 to help someone in their early 20s get to where I'm trying to get earlier on, maybe I can help. So I really just posted it to make myself feel better to see it and make sure I'm not alone. But yeah, like I'm just so sick and tired of people being like, 20s is the best year of your life, college was the best year of your life. It's like, not necessarily. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to thrive in my 30s. My 30s are going to be the years of my life. So yeah, I just wanted a more relatable series that wasn't necessarily tea related so people could not feel alone every single day.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really excited to see what you do with that series. And I think it is important to talk about it because I think, honestly, prior to starting my podcast, people really weren't talking about being in your 20s. And now that I'm like in this like niche now, of course, I'm like looking and seeing what people are saying, but I think it's so important for people to talk about it. I read this book, I'm looking at it right now, The Defining Decade, and really insightful book. And, she really talks about the importance of like using your 20s. I think I mentioned this earlier, but like using your 20s to get to where you want to go now. Like this is like your workshop period. Like we have minimal responsibility. Like we have responsibilities, but we're not married. We don't have kids. We don't have mortgages. Like you can get up and move to New York in 3 months. Whereas if you have a house, you have to think about it. If you have kids, you have to find a school. Just so many different things go into that. So I'm excited to see where your series goes because I think it needs to be talked about on more platforms. And I think TikTok is a great place to talk about it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I feel like I don't know what is going on, but I feel like since at least as long as I've been in my 20s, we've had so much pressure to be these like perfect, well put together people. And I was talking to my friend the other day and I'm like, what, who made up this messed up rule that we need to be these like financially stable millionaires in our 20s? I'm pretty sure my parents were just hanging out, doing whatever they felt like doing when they were my age. But now they're putting like all this pressure on us to have like these amazing jobs and savings, which no hate if that's what you want to do, that's great. But I'm just like in this mentality where it's like I've made great money for my early 20s and I've been absolutely miserable. So maybe it's time to shift and make less money in a career that I'm passionate about that will one day get me to a career that it's like my end goal where I can make money. But yeah, I was just like, why do we have all these rules and why do we have all this pressure on us in our 20s? It's sickening.
And I think that's what's going to make our generation different from like our parents and our grandparents' generations. Like I think it was on TikTok, I saw this thing and it was saying, if you look at your parents and your grandparents, the average amount of jobs that they've probably had is like 3. And then the average amount for a millennial is like 12. And I was like, I think like we're like Gen Z, millennial, we're right on the cusp. But I think we money is important. Like, don't get me wrong, who doesn't want money? But being happy is important. Following your passions, that's important. Because who wants, no offense to the people that are doing this, but who wants to be 50 and hate their job and feel miserable every day? Like, I feel like there's so much more to life than money. There's so much more to life than corporate America. Um, and if that works for you, that's great. And there are some amazing corporate America jobs, but it's not for everyone.
Amen. Seriously, like, don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, have an emergency fund, have that savings. But if I, like, and I made a post about this, if I could give any advice to anyone graduating college, oh, I probably shouldn't say this because this is my advice at the end. I'm not going to give it right now. I'm the podcast to give it
Yes.
because I don't want to spoil.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about life after college. So we're both graduated and grown. So how was your experience moving from a full-time college student to a full-time adult in the real world a couple years ago?
Yeah, honestly, it was really tough. And this goes back to like my serious terrible 20s because I still am struggling with it 4 years post college. And it was not an easy transition. I was in a serious relationship during college and for 2 years out of college. And I was living in a place I didn't love, working a job I didn't love. And I just felt like, once again, I was living for so many other people, not living for myself. And literally, up until a few months ago, I would say that's how my life has been. But yeah, it was a struggle. I felt like I couldn't find my people and I wasn't happy in my relationship. And it was just like a really crappy time. It was not enjoyable. And I feel like so many people struggle and there's just not a good transition or a good like way to describe how it's going to be going from graduating to being an adult one day.
Yeah. And I think we have these expectations like senior year of college, especially if you already secured a job. I'm going to be living my best life. That was me. I'm going to be living my best life. I'm going to be in the city. I'm going to make so many new friends. But I graduated during the pandemic. So none of that happened. I am still at home in my childhood bedroom. And, life kind of hit me in the face. So I wish that we could, like, yes, you should be excited for this new phase of your life because it honestly is amazing. You're kind of more in control of your life. You're going to meet new people. But also, you have to remember that you have some big kid responsibilities. So, what are some annoying adulting responsibilities that you hate having to deal with?
Oh gosh, I would say like the biggest thing that drives me insane is that I can never take a vacation in peace. Like sales right now, so there's not really a true 9 to 5, but that is and that will forever be my like saddest thing to think about is that every vacation I go on until I retire will potentially get bothered by work or someone emailing me or an adult issue. So that, and then there is just so many bills you have to pay once you graduate college that you never even knew existed.
So true.
Life's expensive.
It is so expensive. I did this poll on my story one day, like asking what's one thing you learned post college or something, and somebody said that breathing isn't free. And I was like, that is so true. The amount of like health claims I've had to pay in the last year, and I'm like a fairly healthy person, but if an issue comes up here, that's a bill. Get your teeth cleaned or get a cavity filled, that's a bill. Going to this specialist, I'm like, I need these bills to stop. And I haven't even moved out yet. So I know like once the rent, utilities, parking, transportation bills really start coming in, I'm gonna be tired.
Oh yeah, and it's like right when you feel like you're like starting to save some money up, something just like hits you in the face, and you're like, "All right, take all the money I
Yeah.
just saved."
Adulting.
Yeah, and then like also just you. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, we can have like a fun day without spending money." I'm like, "How? We're not Uber anywhere. We're not gonna eat anywhere. We're not gonna drink anywhere." I was like, "Okay, I'm here for it, but please teach me
Yeah,
how."
I don't understand how. So what would you say is one of the best parts of being an adult?
I would say the best part of being an adult is I like that well, and like I said, this honestly like just hit me a few months ago, but being able to make my own decisions and kind of have the ability to control my life. Um, like I said, I was not doing that up until a few months ago, but now that I feel like I kind of have this like freedom to be who I want and to make drastic life decisions, feels great.
Hmm.
I will say I hate tests. Homework test was never my jam, so I will say not having to do that is pretty awesome too.
I agree. No test is beautiful unless you decide to go back to grad school. So I think one topic that I love talking to people about when it comes to post grad life is friendships. So you have a roommate, you just went on a trip with someone. So talk to me about friendships post grad. How has it been for you? Is it hard making new friends, or are you still around a lot of the people that you went to college with? How is that?
Yeah, so I would say making friends post grad is very difficult, especially when you live in like a state like Minnesota. It's not like a transplant state. Like you don't have a ton of people coming here for jobs. I feel like after college, if you really want to make friends, you got to live in those big cities where everyone is like a transplant and then they're trying to make friends. So for me, it was definitely hard too because I was in a serious relationship and I feel like, and I can't speak for everyone, but I kind of gave up trying to make friends because when you're with someone for so long, you don't really think about pursuing new relationships because you're like, well, I have this person that I'm with all the time. Like we lived together, we were together for 5 years. So I just didn't really put effort into my friendships, which is something that I wish I never would have done. I wish I would have always continued to do that. It was a hard lesson. But I would say after we broke up, I kind of had to start from scratch. And I have a few friends from high school because I went to high school in Minnesota, like 45 minutes from where I live now. All of my college friends are, besides like two, don't live here. I went to school in North Dakota, so they all live in North Dakota still. So the friends I have now are amazing. I'm so lucky. My roommate is a great friend of mine. We went to college together. But my other friends, I feel like I have really pushed myself to be friends with their friends. And like the more I put myself out there and then constantly like kind of like in an annoying way, like inviting myself, that's like helped build friendships because you can't make friends if you don't put yourself out there. And I learned that the hard way. So it's hard, but you kind of have to be that annoying person. And people aren't going to be annoyed about it. You might feel annoying, but they don't think you're annoying. They appreciate it because they don't want to be alone either. And they want friends.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of the time, 99.5% of the time, people want more friends. No one's ever like, no new friends, unless they're just joking. So I mean, you're getting ready to move to the Big Apple. You're moving to like the holy grail of the United States. So do you know any people in New York, or do you think you're gonna have to kind of like start over when you get there too?
Yeah. So I shouldn't. I do know some people. I don't have like any best friends there. I've been meeting a few people along the way, and I know a few people that I know I will get really close with when I get there. But honestly, something that's cool about New York is that a few people that have I've known in my past life have reached out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're moving to New York. Let's connect." Like a lot of people have been so great and open, and I've joined a few Facebook groups and all the girls on them are like, hey, let's connect when you go to New York. So I feel like it's a place that's a lot more open to meeting people, but I'm not moving with anyone. I'm moving completely alone. Over this past month, like I said, I've met people who live there, so I do know a few, but it's a little scary knowing that like I really will have to start from scratch, but it's also kind of exciting because I really get to like choose who I want to keep in my life and spend my time with because I really want to start shifting to like quality friendships over quantity of friends that I have. And I feel like I get to do that from scratch moving to New York. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think again, I'm so excited for you. I think that's going to be absolutely amazing. And I think I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but sometimes it's a lot easier to be friends with people just because of you're in the same like vicinity. But when you put like distance in a friendship, that's when you can really tell, oh, this is my ride or die. Or you know what? I don't think we're like friends, but I think we're really good acquaintances. I can always go out with this person and have a great time, but I don't think like we have to have weekly chats every week. You know what I mean?
100%. And I feel like we all have those friends that we consider like our best friends that we talk to every day, we FaceTime, we hang out with every day, and then we have our going out friends, or we have our friends that we hang out with our other friends. But I'm excited because like in New York, I really want to try to form like a lot of really close friendships and find people who support me and all of that. Just because I mean I'm going to be leaving a lot of amazing people here, so I definitely want to make sure I can find great people in New York as well.
I think you will. This is kind of random, but it just popped in my head. So you're currently working a very traditional corporate America job that's not necessarily very exciting. So how do your parents feel about you kind of like leaving like a stable corporate America job, moving across the country and doing, working in digital media in a big city? What are their thoughts about that?
Mom and Dad, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but I'm going to trash here. I'm just kidding. Um, so my parents definitely are those people who like they react a little too quickly before they think about it. So um, we're like there's okay. So in the beginning, they weren't like overly supportive because they're parents. They're worried. They're like, okay, my daughter is moving alone to the biggest city. It's looked at as being pretty dangerous. She's working in a field that doesn't pay as much as her current job. Like, so they definitely have their concerns for legitimate reasons. Now they're very happy for me. My mom like knows that I'm so excited and she's thrilled. Um, but yeah, it took a little adjusting, even with like doing TikTok. It took a while for my parents, especially my dad, to like understand why I want to put out my whole life on the internet. And then, so yeah, so I mean, they're definitely traditional. Where in the beginning, they're kind of like, "Oh, why are you doing this? Like, this isn't smart." And then I like explain to them, I'm like, "I'm not happy. This will bring me happiness." And I explain like my plans. And I'm smart. I know what I'm doing. And they're like, "All right, okay. If this makes you happy, we're happy." So it took a while, but I think they're adjusting.
And again, I think that's also the difference between like our generation and theirs. We're doing things a little bit differently, so they just have to trust us, and we'll get to where we need to go.
Exactly, 100%.
So you mentioned that you are a single lady. So tell me, you're 2 years single. So how has the dating scene been post college and in a pandemic?
Horrible, absolutely horrible. So yeah, so I've been single for I think it's actually been 3 years. I think I've been single for 3 years. So in between my serious relationship and now I've like dated people for a few months at a time. No one's been like my boyfriend, but I've been exclusive with a few people for a short period of time. But it's hard. Like it's extremely hard to meet people. Everyone that I've met has mainly been through like a dating app. But yeah, it's rough because I feel like people are so rude these days too. So instead of just straight up telling you that they're not interested, they'll just ghost you. The amount of times that I've been ghosted is painful to think about. And like that's the thing I like try to remind people is that it happens to everyone. Like even the most perfect person in the world has been ghosted because like it hurts your ego. You're like, well, what's wrong with me? Like I thought I was pretty cool. Like and then you just have to remind yourself like when someone ghosts you, it's not a you problem, it's a them problem.
Hmm.
And I listen to a lot of like asked about relationships and they've taught me like a lot of really good things to think about. But yeah, it's not fun. I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm just gonna be single and I'm gonna like it.
I mean, again, you're moving to the Big Apple, so your options are probably going to quadruple when you get to New York. And I think also, I don't know. I think in New York, you'll be attending more events, you'll be around more people. Those people may know some people. The Hinge, profiles might be more in New York too. So again, I think New York is just going to be a fresh start.
So when I was, so I didn't know I could do this, but on Hinge you can change
Hmm.
your location to anywhere you. I didn't know that. I thought you had to be actually physically be there. So one time when I was really bored, I just changed my location. This was before I even knew I was moving to New York. I changed to like LA. I changed to New York. When I moved it to New York, I was like, oh my gosh, why is everyone so attractive? Everyone's so tall and attractive. I was mind blown. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for this. I will be going on the apps immediately.
Yes, probably all like rich investment and banking men. So sounds good to me.
Right? Finance bros.
Yes. So, where do you see yourself? I personally hate this question, but I have to ask. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah. So when I read that question, I was like, oh gosh, that's a difficult question because so I actually was listening to a podcast today and someone asked that question and it was the CEO of Barstool.
Hmm.
I love Barstool, so I listen to all their stuff. And she was saying that you shouldn't know where you're gonna be in 5 years because if you do, you're kind of doing life wrong because you need to be like changing all the time and like I mean obviously at the end of the day you can have like an idea goal but it should be changing and evolving constantly. So I think when I think about my dream future, I really hope that I have a stronger like my platform can provide more of an income so I can do it more full time. So if that's a podcast or a YouTube channel or I'm doing something else, that would be amazing. Um, but like even in like 2 years, I would really love to just be having like a podcast or working for a company similar to like Barstool or Betches or something like that.
Okay, but I have to ask. You used to have a podcast though. So what happened to that?
Yeah, so I did have a podcast and it was one of those things that I love doing, but I honestly was getting so burned out. I just like couldn't keep up with full-time job, posting on TikTok and having a podcast. And it got to the point where like a podcast is such a dream of mine. And I was like, if I can't put in all my energy, I'm just gonna like despise this podcast that I feel like I'm forcing myself to do. And honestly, I it was kind of lonely because I didn't want to talk just to myself the whole time. I really wanted to host and I couldn't find someone to do with me at the time. Because like going forward, I would love to have a podcast with one other person just so we could like bounce things off of one another. But yeah, I was starting to like despise it because I felt like it was more of a job versus a hobby just because I was like burnt out from it. I would get home and then I would record and then I would edit. Editing took me forever because I was just learning. And I was like, the next time I do a podcast, it's going to be something I can give my all to. And I'm going to look at it more positively and enjoy it. So I just put a pause on that.
Okay, okay, I respect it. So, is a YouTube channel in the works? Especially, I mean, I keep coming back to New York, but New York content blows up. So, is that like in the works for in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, so definitely when I move to New York, my content's going to be a lot more vlogs. Like I'm going to try to make my channel like 50-50, like personal content and then the tea because obviously the tea forever. I'm obsessed with that. But my goal is for people to follow me because they like me, not necessarily like what I'm talking about. Um, so I definitely will be vlogging everything on TikTok. I would love to do a YouTube channel one day. Like if I get to the point where I can make enough money to do this full time, I will jump to a YouTube channel immediately. It's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if I have the time or what my job's gonna look like in New York. So YouTube channel definitely a dream potentially in the near future, but for the next few months, definitely just TikTok and Instagram for all my
Okay.
content.
I respect it. I respect it. Cool. Well, I have one more question before we get to the end of the interview. And I feel like you did a vlog about this, but I'm going to ask you again. So, how do you balance staying on top of the trends, whether it's TikTok or pop culture trends, while having a full-time job? Because like sometimes I kind of want to give my thoughts on a situation, but I'm like, I have a meeting, I have this, and then it's like 12 p.m. and everybody's already talked about it. So how do you balance the two?
Yeah, so that's something that stresses me out a lot because I have always struggled with that because I always felt like the person who puts out the information first will get the most views. And I've learned that's not the case. I've had a lot of people actually say to me, they're like, Drew, we don't follow you necessarily for that story. We follow you to get your opinion. And also with like how TikTok algorithm works, like I could post a story first, someone could post it an hour later, get a million views versus like I could only get a few thousand. So I struggle with balance every single day. I'm not good at it. That's also why I like to get up so early so I can have the my morning to myself or at least those 2 hours. But I can't even give advice because I'm so bad. Like honestly, thank God for working from home because if I was in the office every day, I don't know what my content would look like. I feel like I'd be like a midnight like video upload, which works for some people. Like I think it's just whatever your audience is used to. I think a lot of people are just used to like I post all my stuff around 8 a.m. in the morning. But yeah, I don't really have advice because I'm not a very balanced individual. I'm working on that every single day.
Hey, you'll get there. But I appreciate your candidness because some people would make up an answer like, "Oh, I do that. I schedule all my TikToks from 12 to 2. I don't let it interfere with my job." Okay. Okay, sure.
Oh, let it interfere
Yes,
too much.
exactly.
Thank God I can say that
But I also
now.
think with work from home, I think if if the pandemic didn't make people work from home, I think TikTok would look completely different. Because yes, a lot of the TikTok stars are like the younger high schooler, college age people, but I think also there's a lot of like either like full-time adults like us or even like older than us that are really really popular and they wouldn't have time to make this content if it wasn't for working from home and flexibility and there not being like a bunch of events. So, honestly, the pandemic did TikTok a huge favor. Huge.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I used to make up like this is purely a joke, so I don't want people to come for me, but I used to like make up a conspiracy that like TikTok started COVID to get their app to like blow up. And it was purely a joke, but I used to say that all the time because I'm like, without COVID, TikTok would be nothing. I mean, it's like changed the way we view social media, how I mean, it gave millions and millions of people the ability to have platforms and the ability to quit corporate jobs to pursue their passions. It like changed the wave of so much. It's crazy to think about.
Yes, it is so powerful. And I honestly love like reading about TikTok. I actually attended this webinar the other day and they were talking about like TikTok and like the ad space and for businesses and stuff like that. But honestly, TikTok really amazes me. I think it's so unique and so powerful. The fact that people's lives have been changed, the fact that your life has been changed. Dixie's life has been changed. Other like so many people's lives have been changed, or even their careers have been like revitalized, like Jason Derulo. We kind of forgot about him for a while. But TikTok changed that man's
Right?
life again. So I love the app. And I honestly can't wait to see like where the app goes. You know what I mean? The next year or two, because it's just gonna get even more powerful. People are still downloading it every single day.
Yeah, and that's something that kind of scares me is like where the app's going to go because I feel like the more oversaturated it gets, the less ability you have to grow, which is fine because like it pushes people to like work hard to grow a following. There's no such thing as you posting a viral video and getting a million followers overnight. But it's crazy because like it also changed the way we view celebrities. Like I almost feel like, and granted, it's because of COVID, like A-list celebrities stayed in, but I almost feel like even with the paparazzi, they kind of pushed the A-list celebrities aside for a bit, and the TikTokers took over. And that's why a lot of people are like, "Why do you do TikTok tea?" I'm like, no shade to people just do pop culture tea because I'm obsessed with pop culture, but the views and the dedication of these TikTok fans on TikTok is just crazy intense with the TikTok tea. Like,
Yes.
and no one's talking about.
100%. It's honestly mind blowing. And I know people have different views on like, did Charlie deserve the 100 million? Da 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 da. But the fact that someone could go on a platform, dance, and have more followers than some, oh, I don't want to talk about James Charles because he's not really popular right now, but more followers than like YouTubers who have been like grinding for 6 years is amazing. The fact that Addison probably has more power right now than, like, in all honesty, like Kourtney Kardashian, that's her bestie. Just the app is
Right?
really, really powerful, and it has the power to launch anyone's career in any direction. Oh my goodness, so good.
Oh, it's crazy. And there's like people every day that I'm seeing on the platform that literally a few months ago they were nobody and now they're extremely popular or famous. And it's just like crazy to think that people's lives are literally changing within a few months or even overnight. Like it's mind blowing how much power this app has, but it's also really cool.
For sure. Well, Jordyn, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed like talking with you, getting to understand like your point of views more. And I think it's time now for you to share that piece of advice that you were saving to the end. So, what advice do you have for listeners who are trying to navigate life after college?
Yeah, so the piece of advice I would have, and I did speak about this the other day on my TikTok, but I would say after college, like really try to choose the career path based off of your passions versus the money. I think a lot of us take that job because it pays well or because our parents approve or society approves, whatever that's supposed to mean. And I know like some people will take that job and it won't pay well, but like in 3 years, you will be in the spot that you need to be to keep following that passion versus like me right now. It's like I'm kind of going backwards, following my dreams at 26, and it's putting me years behind. Where if I would have just followed my dreams from the get go, I would be in a whole different place. So, like, graduate college and follow your dreams versus following the money because you're so young. It doesn't matter at that point.
I love that so much. So, so much. And then, what advice do you have for people who want to grow their TikTok following to even have 10% of your followers, even just 10%?
Yeah, so I was just talking about that with someone today, and I would say the biggest thing is to be consistent and and patient, because everyone's gonna have a different story. Not compare yourself to anybody. There are so many people who do similar things to me who started after me who have more followers than me. People who started before me and have less followers. Like it's so dependent, and the app really is crazy how you grow. Like I can't even explain it. So I would say everyone will have their time to shine. And I don't think the amount of followers means anything. I think it's truly like the amount of interactions you get because there's some people out there with a very small following, but they are so well known because their fans love them. And then there's some people that have maybe a million followers that people don't really know about because like they just aren't as consistent or dedicated. So I would, yeah, consistency, keep posting, keep hustling and pushing through, be patient because it will come. And then also just like interact as much as you can. Comment, respond to people's DMs. Like, remember, like, the people who follow you, like, they're people too. And you need to respect them and don't ever think that you're better than them because of the number of followers you have, because that literally means absolutely nothing.
Wow. Really, really great advice. Okay, you guys, make sure you're consistent and be patient because it'll come if it's meant for you. Well, Jordyn, thanks again for being on the podcast.
Yes.
Before we go, can where can people follow your journey on TikTok or on Instagram?
Yeah, so it gets a little confusing because everyone thinks my real name is Jordyn Wood, or Jordyn Wood. No. On TikTok, it's Jordyn Wood. No. On Instagram, it's Jordyn Woodruff because that's my real name. You also can search for me on TikTok as Jordyn Woodruff as well. But yeah, those are my two main platforms. Maybe some more platforms in the future, but for now, just TikTok and Instagram.
All right, you guys better follow her before she hits 500,000. It's coming close. All right, Jordyn, thank you again for being on the podcast. And I don't know, this was just a really, really good episode. I learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was so great chatting with you. I had a lot of fun.
I hope you all really enjoyed that episode. I had an amazing time. And like I said in the intro, like me and Jordyn are now internet friends. And I think she's so, so rad. I really loved how she emphasized chasing your dreams, and I think that's something that I really needed to hear because I think it's very easy to be complacent when you enjoy your money, you enjoy your lifestyle, and it's like, okay, chasing your dreams sometimes involves cutting that off and pivoting and trying something new. So I wish Jordyn the absolute best in her new journey. I'm so excited for her to move to New York. And like I said, I can't wait to actually meet her one day in person. But if you don't already follow Jordyn, be sure to follow her on Instagram and on TikTok on both of her accounts. I'll have those linked down below in the show description notes. I don't even know what they really call it on podcasts, but yeah. But thank you guys so much for listening. If you don't already follow Graduated and Grown on Instagram, again, it's just at Graduated and Grown. You can follow our YouTube channel and stay tuned for next week's episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. We have one more guest episode of the season, another solo episode, and then season 2 will be finished. I can't believe this is episode 20. 20 whole episodes. That's like over 20 hours of content for you guys to listen to. I would definitely suggest going and checking out old episodes. And if you have any specific topics that you would like for us to cover on the podcast, just shoot me a DM and let me know. I'm always open to having new guests, new topics, and things like that, because I think there's still so much to cover with the world of adulting. But I will talk to you guys in a week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Graduated and Grown podcast. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't already, be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe to the podcast so you can get a notification every single time a new episode is posted each week. Also, don't forget to follow our Instagram at Graduated and Grown so you can learn a little bit more about our guests, about our topics, get some resources, and provide some feedback and or episode ideas for the podcast. All right, y'all. It was your host, Ariane, and I'll talk with you all next week.